I'd like you to imagine for just a moment. It's a room full of people talking, laughing, whispering, and eating together. You probably don't have to stretch very far to imagine this. At the center of the room is a large TV. Some have their eyes silently riveted to the TV, unable to look away from the competition happening there. Others peek every now and then, commenting loudly on the action. Some are barely watching at all, mostly there to see the outcome and be with their friends. This scene has happened in many homes twice recently. In one, the screen is filled with states slowly turning red or blue. In the other, the screen is filled with Vikings, Cowboys, and Steelers, in what is for many a Thanksgiving tradition of watching a football game. Both situations involve politics that can be incredibly personal and painful. I don't know how things have been here. I don't know how it has been in your life, but a lot of the people that I've talked to seem less than pleased with their options this election. Many of them seem really put out by the outcome. Words I have heard used to describe how people are feeling include disheartened, powerless, hopeful, surprised, unsurprised, attacked, frustrated, and angry. Two women I spoke to described the feeling as partly in their stomachs, kind of tight and knotted, partly in their chests, heavy and unable to draw a full breath, and also in their throat, a kind of constant pressure, being one sentence or one thought away from crying. Perhaps you know people who feel this way. Perhaps you are someone who feels this way. Now, I don't know how things have been here. I don't know what's going on in your life, but a lot of the people I've talked to seem less than pleased with their family politics, both the family they were born into or the one they may have chosen as they grew. These family or interpersonal politics can be exacerbated by the politics in the larger world, leading to a Thanksgiving vacation that is anything but restful. Words I have heard used to describe how people feel about their family politics include disheartened, powerless, hopeful, attacked, frustrated, and angry. Some express a mix of joy at having family and frustration, anger, or fear with certain members of their family members that they clash with, or who have hurt them or loved ones deeply in the past. An addict family member who refuses to seek treatment, a family member who always just has to try and control everything, someone who pokes at your sore spots hard, refusing to give you the space and room to heal. These bring about those same tight knots, heavy weight, and constant pressure. Perhaps you know people who feel this way. Perhaps you are someone who feels this way. Maybe you have been so hurt by politics, whether familial or national, that you have withdrawn to protect yourself and no longer associate with politics of your family of origin. Maybe you have stepped away from something or someone that was once dear, choosing instead a new community. Our hearts can be easily bruised, easily damaged to a point that feels or is beyond repair. As Reverend Jackie Lewis says, we live in a hot mess time. However you are feeling, right in this hot mess moment is okay. Take a breath. Let it out. It is good to feel. Unfortunately, while it is good to feel, the emotions are not always good ones. It takes an emotional and mental toll to face and process which things on our lives we can change and which we cannot. When we encounter something we cannot change but want to, we feel hopeless and powerless. We want to withdraw because staying, looking, and engaging takes what feels like an impossibly large amount of energy. This severing leaves wounds that take emotional and physical energy to heal. Something has been lost and deserves to be grieved for. The work of this grief is real and seems to go on and on and on. In my class on death and dying, we learned that when people experience grief, there's a tendency to withdraw. And to be clear, the person grieving withdraws inward, but the community of support has a tendency also to withdraw, being unsure what to say, dealing with their own grief, or not wanting to say the wrong thing. The person grieving becomes isolated, whether or not they want it to be. In these situations, there are several things to be grieved, both the original wound and the wound of lost community. People often don't realize how important community is, how important those connections are, until there is a separation between themselves and the community. Both before and after this most recent election, Facebook was filled with messages from both sides against those who voted third party. This is exactly the kind of withdrawal of community that can create devastating isolation. In families and in national politics, humans tend to create a binary. Either you're us or you're them. Either you're with us or you're against us. And we have seen this in our own church. Either you are Market Street campus or Clover Lane campus. In the country, of course, either you are Democrat or Republican. In my family, it is you are Christian or non-Christian, which also often is generational. Those on the extremes of both sides have been hurt by the other side, and rumors and generalizations have abounded. We go from a community to a binary, from united to divided. In families, nations, and churches, there are people hurting on both sides and people hurting in the middle. The pain associated with any of these positions is real. Victories won over our fellows are briefly gratifying before the words, both spoken and heard, begin to crack us open, leaving us raw and bleeding. Often withdrawal seems like the only viable option. Now, humans are incredibly strong and resilient, so a separation from community, while painful, usually doesn't completely devastate someone's life, although it can, at least for a time. However, it almost always takes some sort of toll. Those I know who are estranged from their families of birth still carry with them the scars of that estrangement, the reasons for it. Those who have chosen to step away from politics carry similar scars. In the midst of the pain caused by the reasons for withdrawing itself takes a massive amount of energy. Humans need and seek connection. It is traumatic to feel like you have to sever ties with someone or something you care about for your protection. We are left with a conundrum. We are exhausted, broken, bleeding, and in need of rest, but taking a break feels like giving up, and we tend to work through our pain until something happens that is so damaging to our weary hearts that we just remove ourselves. It is so easy at that point to just give up, to shove the pain inside a little box, inside of a smaller box, and stick it way deep down in the darkest, most unexplored cave of our psyche and post big caution, danger ahead, do not enter signs around the entrance. Because if we chose to open that box, we would have even more exhausting work, the work of grief and recovery. I would bet that at some point in your familial, born or chosen, church, political, or all three lives, you have been hurt to this extent. Why? In the name of all that is holy, why would we ever want to join these communities in the first place. An 18-year-old girl tells her parents that she is gay. The parents couldn't accept this choice that their daughter was making and kicked her out of their home. When this girl showed up to church on Sunday to help with the children and youth, like she had done for years, she was told that her services were no longer needed. Two of her communities had deeply, deeply hurt her and rejected her. She had nowhere to go. Fortunately, her school was still there for her, and the head of the dormitories found her funding to stay in a dorm room while she attended college. And then he helped her find an on-campus job. A 15-year-old boy is kicked repeatedly in the stomach by his stepfather, and his birth mother refuses to allow him to seek medical treatment. His best friend and friend's mother come to pick him up anyway and take him to the emergency room. He has a ruptured spleen, a life-threatening condition. Because they got him to the emergency room, the rupture is caught in time, and the boy lives. A 16-year-old girl is pressured into sex with her boyfriend, and the condom breaks. She goes to Planned Parenthood, but they are closed for the weekend. She calls her mom, and the mom calls a doctor that goes to their church, who calls in a prescription for the girl. The girl does not become pregnant and finishes out high school normally. A 38-year-old man suffers from mental illness, and a concerned sister calls the police for help, telling them that her brother is ill but not dangerous. The man is shot by the police while holding a vaping device, a device for inhaling nicotine on steam rather than smoke. The man is black and dies, and an entire community rallies around him, led by his sister. This community protests his death and supports his family. A 60-year-old white woman works in a store and makes a joke to a black woman who is checking out. It is a joke she has made many times before to people of all races, ages, and genders. But the woman checking out is upset at the joke, doesn't find it funny, and proclaims so. The white woman is taken aback and feels attacked and guilty. She later relates the story to a friend at church who walks her through what probably happened and why the woman may have felt the way she did. Community plays important, vital roles in supporting us. And this support is not always comfortable. I'm sure the conversation between the white woman in the store and her friend at church was not pleasant. The mother who picked up her son's friend and took him to the emergency room did so at her own risk. The boy's family could very well have taken revenge. The school who found a room for the girl who came out to her parents risks not ever getting back the money or time they put into her. But these people, these communities, supported each other, learning and growing together, because that is what we all need sometimes. Community can be a place of rest. We can find people here that we agree with and will hold us through the difficulties in the outside world. When our families and our politics are hard, when our wounds are bleeding, we can choose to hold one another through the pain, allowing time and space to heal. Community can be a place of solidarity and of support. The people here can choose to support each other through disagreements, can choose to take a meal to each other even when we are arguing. We can choose to grab a mug for the person behind us in the coffee line, even if we can't handle a conversation with them. We can choose to listen to words that we violently disagree with, just to listen and nod and hear one another. We can speak together about things that we don't understand, look at each other in friendship and go, We do not always need an answer. We do not always need to teach one another, but community can be a place of learning. In conversation, when someone is puzzled or doesn't understand, and we think we do, we can ask them if they would like our advice or our opinion. And the asking is important because sometimes you just want to vent. and you don't need anyone to fix you. But sometimes we do want advice. And sometimes we may not want advice, but we know we need it anyway. And someone we trust asking us can prompt us to open up a little. The work of learning and growing is not comfortable or easy, and it is best undertaken with a hand to hold. We can choose to be the hand for that, even if we have no right to demand it of each other. Sometimes I'll go to someone else hoping that they will say the words, "Give me the advice I need to hear." And often they don't say what it was that I needed to hear. Sometimes I even feel worse after talking to them. And it's hard for me to feel like I do my best to support others and not to feel supported in return. But I strive to avoid resentments in those cases. I have a choice to make, not a demand to decree. It is important to feel. It is important to self-care. It is important to continue to come back, to do the hard and exhausting and lengthy work of grief and healing. We can open our tiny boxes while holding each other's hands, listening silently or with words of comfort to our neighbors' hopes and pain. We can feed those we disagree with and join in acts of random kindness. We can join our communities in marches, protests, and calls to our representatives. And this will not always be easy. Sometimes it's best to leave a casserole and a salad and a nice note on your neighbor's doorstep, ring the doorbell, and run. This is the messiness of community. In our politics, in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our congregations, we will hurt each other. We will want to withdraw. And we can choose instead to reach out, perhaps with a coffee cup between us, to stay engaged. We do not have to agree to sit around the TV and watch two different teams battle for a temporary win. And we can hold hands while we do that. Blessed be. I love you. Ashe.